It looks like we have somebody here for public, Melissa and Joe O'Keefe. They here? Come on up. If you could just give your name and address for the minutes then.
Joseph O'Keefe, 88 Mount Penn Road. The reason why I'm here is Robert was nice enough to come out and discuss a lot of things with me about the street where my driveway is. It's a very curvy road, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with it. I only moved into the house a year ago, and my mailbox was taken out twice. Prior to that, the guy that lived there 8 times, and I filed police reports twice. So they speed, long and short of it. My thought process on this is going north, west, and southeast. You guys put slow on the road, and I had driven by there a number of times since I spoke with Robert to look at it. And I went with my pickup truck and also with my regular car sedan. And coming over the crest, you will still be able to see slow. It's something. I don't want to go home one day and find out somebody died on my property. That's about what it comes down to. They come out of Penske at when they get off work, and I mean they're zooming through. Plus the trucks that come through, and I understand. I live on a busy road. I don't have a problem with that. But it's the way the road is, and especially this time of year with the leaves and then the ice coming. During the summer, they want to drive 100 miles an hour. That's gonna, but even if they're doing 25, most people don't know how to drive in ice, and they just don't know how to control it. And it becomes an issue. And I have 5 grandchildren. Not that they're playing up in the street. I would never allow that. But it's, I think the more signage, or, we did talk about it with Robert, my wife and I understand signage fatigue. That does happen. People just after a while, who cares? Boom, boom, boom. But I think if just something that we could do, put something like writing slow on the ground will help. I was asking Robert if I could possibly put up some reflectors inside on my property so that when they come around the turn, they will see it and hopefully slow them down a little bit. During the day, I'm sure they're not going to light up, obviously, but at least at night.
If I could interrupt you.
Sure. Oh, Rob. Okay.
So this is the street where we did the study for the no truck signs. And then Joe Rogoski also recommended some of the changes in advisory signs. We did that a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, something like that. Anyway, Joe called me. He still got some concerns. One of the things I think we can do is put what they call chevrons up with bright sticks on the curve. We can paint on the road, but the problem is then it gets covered with leaves. It gets covered with snow, things like that. But these things will, and this is from Goose Lane, a totally different location. We've got these in a few places throughout the township. But I think if we put a couple of these up, 4 maybe, at the curve that you're mostly concerned about coming down the hill, it's like a ski slope. It really is something. So that's one of the suggestions I have. We spent quite a bit of time talking. You had a lot of questions. Some I couldn't answer, some I could. So I'm glad you came here tonight. But that's one of my suggestions, that we do that. We can certainly look at the slow arrows later on, but I think chevrons like this will make a big difference. And I did discuss it with Joe Rogoski. He thought it was a good idea. So anyway, that's my suggestion.
Thank you.
Are we able to move on any of this? Since it's public, there's a special meeting with a different agenda.
You don't
need a motion for that. You can just authorize the signs to get put up if that's what the board wants.
Yeah, I think that's simple. And just to clarify, I think you're at are you at the second S, because there's kind of two S curves up there,
Yeah,
right?
so if you're going towards Freemansville Road, you come around the first bend and then it curves around. So I'm at the
Banks
lower
down from
bank.
there.
Yeah.
Okay, I know where you're at. Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. Is there any other things you'd recommend, Bob?
At this time, I think if we put a couple of these up, give us a couple of weeks, we can get these in. And we'll see how this goes, and he's got my number, and we'll see how it goes, and if we need to do something else, we'll revisit this.
Curious, is there a particular time of day? Like, is this happening at night when there's like lower
No,
visibility?
it happens a lot, and it's at night, I'm usually not out there, so, but during the day, and it's mostly people going towards Freemansville Road. And I think they come around that first bend and they don't realize there's another sharp one right after it, and they start going really fast, and then they're like, oh my God, this is really fast now. And it is kind of nerve wracking, you know. I don't want to see anybody get hurt. I mean, that's the biggest thing. The second accident it all happened within 12 hours last year. And it was a young woman. She had two kids in the car, and she was going to Lancaster for a volleyball tournament. She was running late. And I don't know how she didn't flip over. She totaled the car. And I mean, it was just two kids. I mean, I just don't want to see anybody get hurt either, you know? And I mean, that's my biggest thing. So, and if those signs will help a little bit, then that's even better, you know?
I'll make a motion to install the signs that Bob's talking about.
We can just do nodding heads if everybody agrees that they can get installed. That's sufficient.
Is that something we have to order, Bob, or do we have those like on site?
We don't keep a lot of signs in inventory, speed limits and stop signs, but things like that. We might have 2 or 3 of these, but we'll have to get these. It'll take a week or two. Our sign supplier is local and very quick. So not a problem.
Just for his knowledge, maybe a month or so, within the month they'll be up?
Give me a month. It's leaf collection season. We're working on sidewalks. We've been awful busy the last couple of days.
I just wanted to address it, and you answered the questions, and I appreciate everything. Okay?
It sounds okay to you, kind of what we're
Yeah,
talking
no,
about?
yeah,
Okay.
I'll take anything at this point.
All right, thanks for
Okay.
coming out.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we'll move over to the Chief Winchester.
Good evening. Just briefly, I wanted to discuss animal control services for next year. As the board should know, the current organization that we're in agreement with under contract is no longer going to be an option in 2026. The last few years, this has been a hot topic throughout the county, probably even throughout the state, relative to animal control and the requirements that we have under statute to assist in vicious or emergency situations when animal attacks somebody, I guess you could say, or is out and about. I did talk with the ARL 2 weeks ago. Myself and Lieutenant Besner had a meeting with the ARL and spoke with the director. The main purpose of that was to explore options for 2026 to see if it was something that they'd be willing to do, provide us with the service that we need and that we would want, which is different than what we had in the past with them, and to try and reestablish a good relationship with an organization that's in our township. Essentially, what we were told was that, one, they would work on something and get back to us. Two, currently the situation that they're in, we are somewhat of an anomaly, meaning a township our size, and the service that we require and desire. They are providing service to municipalities at a Cadillac level and at a Yugo level. And we're interested in a Chevy level, which makes it very difficult according to them. What I explained to her, the director, was that the service that we are looking for is a service that would assist the PD in temporarily housing dogs that we could not immediately find the owner for. We've made a lot of changes since COVID, since the Animal Rescue League was no longer an option. We invested in some equipment in order to try and minimize the times where we would need their service. We've done a great job at that. We do have some crates that we've purchased that we can temporarily house a dog for a few hours. We increased our social media footprint with dogs that we do get on to try and reestablish their owner or get them back to their owners. We also purchased a chip reader. We also have a snare which we can use to detain aggressive dogs for a period of time. And essentially, with all those improvements, we've been able to minimize the number of services that are required to an average of 8 to 10 dogs a year that we just can't locate the owners for. That's our average. Our running average has been that for the last 2 years. What the ARL is looking at is the averages that we had when we were going with them about 3 years ago. At which time we advertised throughout the entire township that anytime an animal was discovered or detained, anybody within Cumru Township could take them to the ARL. We've gotten away from that. And we also have limited our responses to aggressive dogs where the individuals who call us, it's an emergency situation. We both agreed, when I say we both, meaning the director and myself, agreed that this is a much greater issue at a state level because of the requirements that are put on police. Similar to other requirements, this is something that we're not trained to do. And we don't have the equipment and the specialty to do it, especially the police department or the township. Yet the state is falling behind and still requiring us to do these things. So they're going to try and get back to us about to see if they can work with us in providing the service that we desperately need without charging us the $7.50 per capita that they quoted us back 2 years ago. And what my request to the board is that the board become involved in this proactively and speak with their board, because their director answers to their board, just as I answer to you. And I'm at a loss on what I can do, and I can't influence the director anymore than meeting with her and really trying to establish what we need. And if they can't come up with a service plan that can suit us or fit us, we're going to be in a hard place. And we can't refuse to respond to these emergency dog situations, animal situations. We have to do this by statute. So again, we can wait until the state changes their laws, but that might be a long, long time. So I would ask that the board get involved and try and reach out to their board to try and reestablish a good relationship, because like I said, it just doesn't make sense to me that they're in our township and we don't use them for animal control services. I can't tell you how many times people have come to us and would say things that, hey, I saw on social media that the ARL is doing an educational drive or chipping animals or an adoption. And I saw them with Exeter Police Department or Bern Township Police Department. Why don't they do that with you? Aren't they in your township? And it's a tough, answer to tell them, well, yeah, you'd think, but we're not involved with them. We're not under contract with them, or they're not under contract with us. But I think that it would be really beneficial to us if we could try and reestablish that. I did tell the director that, the township is more than willing, meaning the PD, to participate in those educational drives where we would try and, educate the public on ways to mitigate the stray cat, feral cat situations in townships. The ARL director said that that is a huge issue in the state for them. And they're trying to come up with ways to educate and lower that feral cat population. So I kind of threw it out there that we'd be more than willing as a PD to assist in anything like that. So, you know, we can benefit, you know, be a benefit to them, and they can be a benefit to us as well.
Are there, I know where you want to do business with ARL because they're in our township, but are there alternatives out there, and who are they and where are they?
So the only other alternative that's out there right now is going to be Safety Net Sanctuary, which we were under contract with them 2 years ago, and we were not happy with the service that they provided us at all. And when I say that, not getting into specifics, but we would detain the animal, the dog, take the dog to them and drop them off. So it was very little service that they provided us, and we were not happy with that at all. So aside from them, there really isn't any other option. So I'm hoping that she comes back, the director comes back with a reasonable proposal, knowing that right now what she indicated to me was that the Cadillac service is about $4, did I say, Gene? $4 per capita. And she also provides the low-level service, which is almost a per service fee. And she said that that is not going to be something that they think that they can do for us or any township our size. So what we're looking for is something in the middle. So I'm hoping for something that would be under that $4 per capita, but also it would not be a per service fee. So regardless, if they do come back, I would anticipate somewhere around a $3 to $50 per capita proposal, just to throw that to the board. So they're not, you know, can expect something.
To give the board an idea of the cost that we're talking about. And the ARL, the last formal communication we had with them was the $7 to $7.50 per capita, and they mean by population. Our population under the census is 15,619. $7 per capita is over 109,000, and $7.50 per capita is over 117,000. For 8 to 10 dogs a year, to charge that kind of money, I'm telling you, that is not. Yes, thank you. One of the things that they desire or allow with that service that I think is part of what they want is they would allow any resident to bring any cat or dog. The chief and I are talking just dogs. We are not talking about cats. And that's one reason that we are arguing in favor of a lower per capita fee. To give you another frame of reference, the library that we have historically been donating to, that is $2.50 per capita, and that is 39,000 and change. So and $4 per capita would be 62,500. So when we're talking more than what we pay to the library, frankly, I think we should be looking at a per dog fee of some kind. And I don't even know if the Humane Society is an option. Believe it or not, the city does not use the Humane Society. They use the ARL at $4 per capita, which for the city is quite a bit of money.
Yeah,
Last time I reached out to the Humane Society, they're not an option.
Okay.
so like every municipality in Berks County is going to ARL? I mean, is that the current state?
No, there are a few, but some of the more rural municipalities are basically they're using, if they're in the southern part of Berks County, they're using Brandywine, which has a very good, like the ARL of Brandywine, and they're a very, very large organization. And some of the municipalities are frankly using farmers who have the ability to keep animals. I know Byrne Township is using the ARL, Reading is using the ARL. I don't have a complete list.
And then a lot of the smaller municipalities are using the ARL at that per service fee.
Because the ARL is willing for a small municipality to use the per animal fee.
Correct. That's, and what what the ARL is looking at is not only just what we would be bringing in, but they are looking at what they believe the population would be bringing in. And that's the problem with the cats. And I told them, we're not looking at that. And I was told flat out that years past, when this $7 and $7.50 was quoted, proposed to us as a fee, it was their intent to get out of the municipal government game.
They were successful.
They absolutely were.
That was quite a discouragement.
Yeah.
But now they're thinking differently.
I guess. But and like I said, I was hoping that our board could reach out and speak with their board to try and get an amicable agreement.
Yeah, I think we can have somebody do that. I see you jotting away. Do you have any thoughts on it?
Essentially spending twice as much as we spend on public libraries is upside down world in my mind, in terms of what the public gets for the money. To me, this is something where, like, if like you said, we can get, if we're taking 10 dogs there per year, it's crazy for me to even think $2 per capita is equal cost. But yeah, I think we'll just have to see what we can find out.
And when I talked with the director about the average number of animals that we would bring in, the dogs we bring in, her numbers were different, and that's flawed. And Gene and I had spoken to the directors in the past relative to this, the numbers they were getting. A lot of the individuals that were dropping off these dogs, they were simply saying, I'm from so-and-so, or they wouldn't say anything, and they would account for Cumru Township because they're in Cumru Township. As well as if they did get a license and saw those addresses, one of the things that I pointed out to her was that I would say on average, 40%, and that's a very generous average, 40% of the population do not have the correct address on their license. So it's the numbers are skewed, and you have to look at this. One of the numbers I did ask her was the individuals that have come since we haven't been under contract that claim to be Cumru residents that are turned away because we're not under contract. How many, what is that number? And she couldn't provide that. That would be a great number to know. But unfortunately, they just don't track that.
Also kind of convenient that they don't track that. My mind goes to, like, what if we had an agreement where only RPD could bring animals in?
That's what we're asking.
Yeah, okay.
That's exactly what we're asking, the service that we're asking.
Okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense to me.
And do we have some sort of deadline that we need to have this wrapped up by, or?
We're currently still under contract through this year. It expires at the end of this year.
So ideally, we would want by January, something in place.
Correct. I just got an email today from the assistant director. I believe she's the assistant director, who advised that the director is at a conference out of state, and upon her return, they would get together and discuss this. So she didn't want us to think that that they forgot about us, but it's kind of hoping it would be before that, but it's not.
Yeah, we'll get somebody out on it and then see where it goes.
Thank you.
All right, we'll kick it over to Chief Bean for the fire station.
And I'm gonna defer to Jeff from Atlas.
Jeff, yeah.
Hey,
Good evening.
Alan, you're Jeff.
I'm Jeff, not Alan. Yes, correct. There, you can't tell the difference. Well, good evening. My name's Jeff Skinner. I'm Atlas. We are the civil engineer, site engineer for the fire station. And I'm here to present change order number 2 for the contract for contract 1A, which is the general contract. This is for the addition of paving and sidewalk replacement around the administration building. To bring the administration building sidewalk entrances up to ADA standards and to repair the crumbling side driveway and parking lot pavements surrounding the administration building. I believe this was discussed previously, but we got some numbers from the contractors and put some plans together and created the change order that you have before you. It is in the amount of $121,327.14. This covers part of the costs of doing this. The other costs will be made up through the allowances in the fire station contract, as well as savings that we have found by reducing other items from the fire station contract. So this change order is about half the price of all the work that needs to be done. And we will also be extending the completion date for just the general contractor, not the other 3 mechanical, electrical, or plumbing contracts with this due to the issue of paving during the winter months, which can get delayed at times. You want to be paving when the temperature is 40 degrees or rising, as well as the plants are sometimes shut down if there's going to be extended cold periods. So we have to wait till they open up and the temperature is available sometimes to get the paving completed.
For the board's information, they've already started on the handicap ramp on the upper level of the building. And next week, when you come in for your next meeting, they may be starting on the handicap ramp for the lower level, and you may need to come in the side door. We'll let you know. But the handicap ramps, both of them, but especially the one on the lower level, are in rough shape. And Public Works has repaired the lower level one several times, and repairs are not holding. So it needs to be done for liability purposes. And the parking area on the upper level is down to the gravel. It is almost not drivable. So this work is very much needed. And as I previously described to the board, and as Jeff has just stated, a portion of this cost is coming out of the allowance that is already in the contract. And then there are various credits which are in the documentation that of items that Chief Bean and I and Mr. Bill Miller, who's been coming to the construction meetings, have cut out of the contract. And then there's some overage that will also, so essentially you're increasing the scope of work by this 121,000 to do these items, the paving and the concrete work. If Mother Nature cooperates, we could get all the paving done in this calendar year. But based on yesterday, if anybody experienced that humdinger of a storm yesterday, we're not counting on it. So the reason for the time extension for this particular item is assuming Mother Nature doesn't cooperate and we have to do the wearing course, also known as the top coat, in the spring. So that's where we're at with this. This is consistent with what I've spoken to you about previously. And so we'd like to know if the board has any questions or thoughts. That's why Atlas is here, that they could answer any technical questions.
So if memory serves, I thought that we were going to cover this entire thing out of the remainder of the bond
Yes.
funds.
Yes, it's there's enough money in the bond funds to pay this, but it still needs to be a change order on the scope of work.
Oh, okay. So the 121 we're talking about, that's not in addition to the bond funds?
No, it's from that pot of
It's
money.
from that pool. Okay, so we don't need money over and above the bond funds.
No, not for this.
Okay.
No, I understand that. That is something that we're watching very, very carefully. So did you have any other questions?
All right, so then I'll make a motion to approve the change order as submitted.
Second.
Mr. Bill Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. Greg Miller.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you, Jeff,
You're
for
welcome.
coming.
Thank you.
Let's see. If there's anything you need to stay for. I don't think so. We're not doing the sewer budget today. You can stay if you wish. Yeah, I hear you. The next item is, however, related, the arbitrage payment. The bonds were issued on October 29th, 2020. Because of COVID and DEP permitting, the phase one of the project, which were the utility lines, took longer to complete than anticipated. Therefore, it took longer to let the bids for the actual building than anticipated. The board may recall that the bids were let in January 29th, 2024. So the bulk of the money, of the bond money, was not used within a 36-month period. And depending on interest rates and other factors, there is invoked something called arbitrage. Essentially, the municipality is not allowed to earn too much money off of bond money. And my understanding, and Kelsey can certainly correct me, but when this started to be something we had to be concerned about because of the pop-up in interest rates after COVID. And I know right now interest rates are beginning to sort of come back down, but interest rates popped up. The bonds were issued at 1.99%, and then we ended up nicely earning some money off of that. But the whole point of the arbitrage regulations is, I guess there was a phase back in the 70s when some municipalities were issuing bonds and living off the interest and then not completing the project that the bonds were for. And this whole set of regulations is so that municipalities don't do that. We happen to be caught in this very strange time warp caused by COVID and the supply chain issues that resulted from that. So there is a fee that has been calculated that has to also come out of the bond money, and I have accounted for that. It's $21,200 and some odd change. Pliget, which is one of the financial institutions that the township uses, has been extremely helpful in calculating this amount, and that was on your tablet drive. And there's also an IRS form that goes along with it, and some other paperwork that goes along with making this payment, which has to be made within 60 days of October 29th, 2025. What we're asking for the board to do is to authorize the township to work with a Pliget under a professional fee schedule that Mr. Greg Miller has in his hand, to allow them to assist us with filing this fee and form with the IRS. It is something that I do not have experience with, and frankly, I don't know anyone else who has experience with this. Even at the time that arbitrage became an issue for us, the bond counsel and other attorneys had not had an experience like this because it just hasn't been an issue for most entities in a very, very long time. So we're asking the board to authorize the administration to work with Pliget under that professional fees schedule in order to get this filed and taken care of.
Gene, as part of the ask, are we effectively entering into a contract with US Bank?
And,
Or am I misunderstanding this?
I think Kelsey could probably answer that question a little better.
Yeah, it would be, the professional services company would be PFM Asset Management. They're a division of US Bancorp. And the fee schedule is indicated on this services agreement. The fees aren't anything crazy, but that is who the township would be contracting with, yes.
The minimal fee will be $1,500. The reason we were interested in putting this on your agenda is because, as you can see there are provisions for if there are any snags, they could charge different hourly rates. What I was quoted was they anticipate this will be a straight 1,500. But, I wanted the board to be aware of this.
This is a very gray area for me. I'm not sure if I can vote on this or not. I might be conflicted.
I was concerned about that, yeah. But is it majority of a quorum?
It
Or-
is, yeah.
Okay.
When do you need this ideally?
Well, it would, normally I wouldn't even ask the board, to be honest with you. For a $1,500 fee, I would not even ask the board. That's something I can authorize. It's only because this is a highly unusual situation that I felt it was good to put in front of the board. If the other two members of the board are inclined, we can put this on your agenda for the 13th. You have a meeting next week. And I can alert the contractor, if you will, that of what the status is. But we have to make this payment by December 29th.
So, I mean, I don't know how you feel, Bill. My inclination, well, I have one question, but my inclination is to say, I trust you to your judgment and to do your fiduciary duty. And if this is what you think you need to do as the township manager, then we should do that. The only question I have is 1,500 sounds reasonable. What are, when we talk about snags, we're not talking about like a curve that
I
shoots
understand. I
vertically
understand.
immediately.
Well, I can see if I can get some clarification on that between now and the 13th.
I mean, just, I'm happy to move on this now. I guess if we have a sense of like, are we talking like another $500 or $1,000 or another $10,000?
Do you want to set a do not exceed?
Yeah, I mean, if we can do that, like, can we move on this with a do not exceed double the 1,500, whatever they say?
If you can do it with two people,
Yeah.
because the very thing you're describing is why I'm conflicted here. Because I have thoughts and feelings on the amounts and I can't get into that.
I
I'll
think-
make the motion to authorize.
I mean, I would, can we,
Kelsey might
So because this is a necessary service that the township needs in order to meet an obligation, a legal obligation that it has under the law, I don't necessarily think that there needs to be a motion. I think it's just nodding heads authorizing Gene to move forward with making sure that the professional services get obtained. And if there's a number that you don't want to exceed, then, let's just call that out, but I think she can move forward with it.
So I heard,
Without
I
having a
just
majority
heard
tonight.
3,000 being called out.
I mean, if we can keep it 1,500, that's ideal.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I just don't want to
Absolutely.
see this go from, oh, this is only $1,500 to this is $15,000.
Yeah, I'd
No,
say if
understood.
they're gonna go over that, they can come back.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
And is the right of way maintenance with you as well, Gene?
Oh, yes, pardon me. The reason, we brought that up, and, I was actually hoping also that the two commissioners-elect would be in the audience, because I know you've been attending a lot of meetings. This has to do with the communications we've had, several of them lately, from a resident about, trimming weeds in the right of way. And you've heard me talk about this before. A meeting or two ago, I spoke about township mowing rights of way. And technically, the township does not have to do any mowing of rights of way. Property owners are responsible for property. A right of way does not mean that the township owns that land outside the cartway, but the township has rights in that land. Okay. Where this particular discussion is going, and it's not even really discussion, it's something I want the board to think about. We haven't had one of these discussions or think about moments in quite a while. And that is, we have a township that's essentially has two faces. We have urbanized and suburbanized portions of the township with quarter-acre subdivision or even more densely populated. We have the area north of Lancaster Avenue, which is very, very densely populated. We have Montrose Manor, we have Mifflin Park, we have Overbrook, which is kind of quarter-acre subdivision. We have other pockets of subdivisions throughout the township. Of course, we have Flying Hills. And those are urbanized and suburbanized areas. A lot of them have curb, not all of them. Flying Hills is famous for not having curb because of the way they did their stormwater planning. Then we have areas of the township that are extremely rural. And we have a rural-urban interface kind of in the middle, and we're pretty much located in that rural-urban interface right now. What I want the board to think about, and future commissioners to think about, is what do you have as an image in your head of how we deal with these kind of issues in these drastically different areas of the township. There are some things in the rural area of the township that you would be shocked to see in the more urbanized areas of the township, and vice versa. I'm not asking for a motion from the board. I'm asking for the board to think about when these issues come up. It's very, very difficult sometimes to look at a property in one area of the township the same as a property in another area of the township. And I think that was exemplified with this particular resident's communications, that some of the areas he was talking about are generally considered country roads, and they look like country roads. Do we need to treat country roads with the same standard as a city road? And I'm not asking for an answer. I'm just trying to inspire you to think about these things. And especially now in this time of year, when last night, I think all the leaves in Cumru Township fell down. They certainly did in my yard. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes. There are twice as many homes in Cumru Township after the leaves fall down. You'll see homes you never saw before. So that's what I wanted to bring up, is what does the board have in its head? And you will be confronted with policy decisions, especially related to codes, in some of these cases. some of the opinions of the individual who contacted the township, are not necessarily agreed upon. For instance, one of the roads that was brought up, they're driving down, taking pictures, there seemed to be no impingement on sight distance in that area. There are some areas of the township, for instance, right across your Church Road, where if the property owner attempts to trim the road on a blind curve, it's very difficult. They would actually have to block half the road to get that done. And they would be in the road. So there are some very difficult areas of the township. And I just wanted to bring this up because I think it's a good point of discussion, especially when there are new board members coming on and they'll have to be involved in these kind of disputes and decision making. That's all.
Gene, when you say how we're gonna treat the road, you're talking about things like, what, trimming back bushes that are overhanging, like
Yeah.
what are you thinking
Well,
about?
when a tree is over the cartway is where the car or truck is driving. If you have a tree overhanging cartway that's less than 14 feet, that's there's an ordinance on that. And that's about snow plowing so that trucks can clear underneath. But when we're talking about off to the side, it's not over the cartway. Is it a weed or is it something that people want? Sometimes sometimes people even put up signs, do not mow. They don't want us to touch their property. Sometimes it's highly landscaped, that they've purposely planted something in particular that if it's mowed, they will complain that they just spent however much money planting in a particular way. But if it's over the cartway, that's something that's easily dealt with. I'm talking about the stuff that's still in the right of way, but not necessarily a hazard. If it's a hazard, that's identifiable. But if it's not a hazard, if it's more aesthetics, how does one view aesthetics? That's where I'm going with this one. So.
Okay, I think I know which email you're talking about now.
And I'm not asking for the board to do anything at this meeting. I just thought it was worth bringing up, especially since we're having a significant change in the composition of the board. These are the kind of things that are going to come up. And it was kind of timely with the emails from the other individual. And actually that dovetails in with the next item. Bob, if you'll pardon me for starting off with this one. The township gets requests frequently from people who want special signage that is not traffic control. Now, PennDOT puts out a manual called the MUTCD, the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. And it is a gigantic book that tells you exactly what signs can and should look like on roads according to PennDOT standards. For example, what a speed limit sign looks like, where you can put one of those speed limit signs of what kind. You cannot put a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit on any of the roads in the township unless it's at a school. For example, that's just one example. You cannot do 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, A, without a traffic study, and B, it has to be an urbanized area. And as I've just stated, a lot of the township does not qualify for urbanized area, etc. So there are lots of regulations about signs, but we get a lot of requests for children at play, watch children, hidden driveway. There are a number of other, Bob probably has a litany in his head of these different types of signs. And we've recently gotten 3 different requests for these non-traffic control related signs that people want. Now, I'm not saying that signs are expensive, but another thing that I would encourage the board to think about is, where does it end? There could be a lot of signs in a lot of places, and Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it is strictly a matter of opinion. And we just happen to have a flurry of these requests at the moment. Sometimes property owners create their own problem and then ask for a sign to help mitigate the problem that they created. For example, they put a driveway in a place that created a hidden driveway when they had other options in the beginning. So it was kind of happening at the same time as the comments about trimming in the right of way, and I thought it was worthwhile bringing up as another policy type issue. Bob, I didn't know if you had any other input on this particular item.
We dealt with Mr. O'Keefe tonight. Mr. O'Keefe's issue had nothing to do with roadside mowing. It had to do with the geometry of the road. Both the horizontal and vertical, as Joe would say. We dealt with that tonight, but that took 8 phone calls from various state, local, and municipal officials. Mike and I spent an hour with him and his wife. And hopefully we won't get many more requests, but while the signs aren't super expensive, they are $80 a piece. It adds up. We just went through an election, and there were plenty of signs out. Once you get more than 2 or 3 signs out, you don't know whose sign you're looking at. It's the same way with road signs. And yeah, there's one new house, they want a hidden driveway sign. Well, 2 things, they put their driveway in a bad spot, they graded the entire yard except the right of way where they pull out, and they refuse to mow. So they've kind of set up their own problem, but that came back 2 or 3 times. You know, when are you gonna put a sign up? Why can't you put a slow sign? The police department cannot enforce a slow sign. It's a suggestion, and usually we use those for roads that have some kind of geometry issue. So, yeah, it's come up a lot. I try to mitigate them as much as I can with talking to the homeowners, but sometimes they just keep going, and then you end up with Mr. O'Keefe here. I think we've solved this problem for now, but that road's been that way for 200 years. And frankly, on Mount Penn Road, you're either not paying attention and going too fast on that section of road, so you're not gonna see the sign anyway, or you're trying to see how good your car is, because it's quite the turn. So, but hopefully we'll get people's attention a little bit more. I went to a sign class years ago that the state put on. They sent me to California for a sign class. They paid for it. But anyway, we learned a lot then, but things have also changed now. You know, there's so many more cell phones. There's so much more to cell phones doing. Everybody has a 10-inch TV in their dashboard. Everybody's much more distracted. So we'll see some of this stuff more and more. And some people, it goes back to roadside mowing, have unreasonable expectations, I think, that what we can do with putting a sign up or mowing this or that.
So if the board, again, I'm not asking for a motion from the board. What I'm asking for is if you are, if someone approaches you about an additional sign, think about what does the board want us to put up every sign that is requested? Or does the board want us to use some kind of standard? You want us to think about the hazards, but hazards are very subjective. Sometimes again, we'll use Mount Penn Road. There's geometry of the road involved there, but sometimes then hazards can come and go. For instance, in my neighborhood, I live over in the Penguin area. In my neighborhood, the neighborhood cycles. There are a lot of children in the neighborhood, and sometimes there are very, very few children or no children in the neighborhood. And then, of course, the homes turn over, and then the cycle begins anew. So I'd like the board to think about it. If you have particular opinion, if you would like us to fulfill all these requests, please let us know. But it's very difficult sometimes when receiving some of these requests, because obviously people are concerned.
I'm just curious, I can't recall specifically, do we budget specifically for signage like this, like in like the annual budget?
we budget for signage. You'll see it in the highway budget when we get there either next week or the week after. But we don't have a budget for these non-traffic control signs.
We budget for signs in general, not specifically, because they get knocked down all the time. Or we, over time, you'll identify ones that are rough. A few years ago, we did budget for stop signs. I think we put up 200 stop signs the one year, which were long overdue. But for the most part, no, we don't budget for a specific sign, but we have a pot to go to as signs get knocked down over the course of the year. Run over, trees down, stuff like that.
If memory serves, maybe it was the same house, actually, the speed limit sign that got put up on Mount Penn Road. I remember having the conversation about, well, people can just put up their own signs. Is there anything stopping from just saying, hey, you want to put a sign up? Go ahead and put a sign up.
That particular sign came up, what he put up was a sign that looked like a regulatory sign. And that goes back to the MUTCD that Gene was speaking about. A white sign with black lettering is a regulatory sign. A yellow sign with black lettering is a advisory sign. The police department can enforce a non-standard regulatory sign or a regulatory sign that doesn't have an ordinance backing it up. We did have some discussion about taking down that sign with Kelsey and Joe. So I knew I was, as we used to say, on the side of the angels when I did tell this man he had to take the sign down. Because sometimes they get pretty aggressive when you're standing in their front yard taking their sign down. Now that wasn't the case here, but we've had to revisit this several times. So we can stop people from putting a private sign up in a public right of way. But that becomes an interesting discussion when you're standing out there with the tape measure, trying to measure from the white line, whether or not it's in the right of way or not in the right of way. And, I just want to take it down to kill their children. And I've been told that many times. You just want to take that down so my children will die. So then we're out there having that discussion. And it's not in the nice confines of this building. It's in front of their house.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily talking about taking down. I'm talking about using the hidden driveway one, for example, that you were talking about. Somebody wants to put a hidden driveway sign up, can they just put one up?
Yeah, but they pay taxes, and why can't you put it up for me?
Yeah, okay, but understood. But I mean, if that's the answer, we can be like, it's an option, I guess, is what I'm saying.
They can't put up their own sign in the road right away.
If it was outside the right of way and they wanted to put up a hidden driveway sign, they could go buy one and put one up.
You're looking at the wrong end of the table.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, anyone can put signs in their yard if that's what they want to do. It's their property. As long as it's not in our right of way. I mean, there's nothing prohibiting them from doing that. I think the issue is though, like with something like a hidden driveway sign, how far back in their yard is it going to be? Is anyone going to be able to even see it? Is probably what they're going to say.
So, thank you for the discussion again. But that is an option. I'm sure everyone has seen some people they look like little plastic people of, the turtles or like little people, let's say, children at play, something like that. Yeah. People are welcome to do that, not in the right of way. If there's a way for this particular household to indicate that it's a hidden driveway, but it's not in the right of way, I don't know how exactly, but they could do that theoretically. Yes.
There's more than one house in the township or nearby in adjoining townships that put up the speed enforced by radar signs. And that's simply not true.
Yes, local police are still not allowed to enforce by radar, only state police. So thank you very much. I'm sorry for lengthening the meeting, but those were very timely issues that came up, and I thought it was worthwhile at least getting them out there.
Go to Kelsey then, I guess.
Yes, so I have kind of an update for the board on the Sensit Apartments issue. I think the board is all very familiar with that issue and the elevator issue going on there. And the commissioners elect too. I think you're familiar with it because you're probably going to be dealing with it next year. We did get a timeline from Sensit regarding how long they think it's gonna take to fix the one elevator that is completely inoperable. And as you know, that's gonna be not until November of 2026, I think. So a year from now. So that was an issue. I did have a conversation with Brian Gottschall from the county, and we came up with a couple of ideas that might alleviate some of the risk involved in having one semi-operable elevator at the site for the next year. And I did get in touch with, I sort of demanded the information for Sensit's counsel. So the attorney that represents Sensit also represents the property owner, so it's the same attorney for both, which is good because that means everyone's on the same page. I filled him in on everything that was happening. He didn't seem to really know all of what was going on. So I gave him all the information that I had and sort of threw the ideas that me and Brian talked about to him. One of which was seeing if there's any way that we can expedite the repair of the inoperable elevator. And that wouldn't be necessarily getting the parts quicker, because that's not something that anyone has control of, you know, supply chain issues and all that good stuff. But once they get the parts, the question is, can we, or can they, or can somebody pay some sort of extra money to get the elevator repair company to do it quicker? So that was an option that we threw out. The other thing we talked about was having somebody on site after hours, like literally someone on site 24/7, because one of the issues was the elevator that is operating sometimes gets jammed. If it stays open too long, it trips, and then that elevator isn't working. And if nobody's on site after hours, everyone's stuck until the manager gets there in the morning. So we talked about having someone be on site 24/7. So when that elevator trips, if it trips, someone's there to reset it that knows how. So those were the two options we thought of. We're still kind of going back and forth thinking of if there's anything else we can do short of the nuclear option of shutting it down, which we talked about, which nobody really has a big appetite for. We also talked about maybe trying to find places for some of the more severe, the severe issued people there, the people with the more severe mental or physical issues to go in the meantime. But we didn't really get any answers. So I have an update for you, as in I talked to people, but I don't have an update for you as in a resolution. So Steve Williams is the attorney for Sensit. He's going to talk to the powers that be at Sensit and the property owner, and he's going to get back to me and let me know where they're at, what they're thinking. And I have a calendar to follow up with him in case he doesn't call me back.
I was actually just thinking about this afternoon. Like usual, crazy ideas pop into my head. And I wanted to ask you tonight, is there any legal standing that the township has to sue the management of the Sunset apartment building?
Did I say sue or fine, just to add?
Well, certainly we can cite them, which comes with fines because they are in violation of the township's ordinances and the International Property Maintenance Code. So codes could cite them and fine them, yes. And I think Willie's sort of on his way to doing that. I mean, he's issued notices of violation, but no citations yet.
Yeah, and the reason for no citations is that they are, it is our understanding, and Kelsey can confirm this with the other attorney, that where things get stuck is the custom manufacturing of the new elevator. And it doesn't make sense to cite them for now that they finally have a contract for something that is beyond their control. We had to threaten them with citations in order to get them to that point.
I think that's where my, I'll call it agita comes from here. Like it's not like we started talking about this yesterday. Like this has been going on for quite some time.
Yes.
I don't know. I'll pause. It looks like Andy wants to say something.
Trying to choose my words carefully, but I'm just not going to. Frankly, I don't have much faith in this management company not being full of shit about timelines and not paying the amount of money that needs to be paid to get this done as quickly as it could possibly get done. I mean, we put people on the moon in under a decade. And we're talking about an elevator that's gonna take 18 months to get done, and this thing has already been engineered and they just need to fabricate parts. And I get that there's supply chain and that it's like a special elevator or whatever, but it just sounds like a duck and looks like a duck to me. And it sounds, and by duck, I mean a management company wanting to pinch as many pennies and stretch this out as long as they possibly can. And I just don't like the smell of it. And that's why I'm like, what incentive, carrots or sticks, can we create to make this move? Well, this is, if not the most vulnerable, highly dense population in the township. It's got to be damn near that. And I just don't find it acceptable that, like, the nuclear option of, oh, what are we going to do with these people? Well, what if these people or one person dies because something bad happens and they can't get out of this tower? That's worse than the nuclear option that we talk about.
And I would echo that. I mean, I think if this just came up yesterday, I would have a different opinion of it. But the fact that we've been talking about it for, I don't even know how long it's been that long. It's probably close to a year already. And to Kelsey's point, we kind of had to threaten them just to get here. I don't know. I don't have a lot of patience and I don't know if trust is the right word, but I'm skeptical, to Andy's point here. I'm also Yeah, well, I'm also very aware that there's a lot of other folks that have a lot of interest in this. Senator Schwank has been heavy involved. All three of the county commissioners have been very involved, and Senator Guzman has been very involved. They all, by the way, are very interested in updates on this all the time too, because they're on top of it. And I think they would all kind of echo the comments that we're making here. This is frustrating. It's been quite some time. It's going to go on for a little while longer. And you know how things is. Well, it's a year today. Well, the parts took longer, or this happened, or that happened. Now it's 2 years later. I mean, I don't know. My patience is wearing thin.
Greg, can I say something?
Shoot.
I want to clarify is one, this is a total replacement. Okay, so this isn't parts. This isn't parts. This is a total replacement. I'm talking crane in, crane out. Like, this is a total car replacement, and then the other one's supposed to follow. Okay. This has been going on for quite some time, and they've been patching it together. Like every place does. With put Band-Aids on stuff when you should be doing other things. And the management company has also changed in this time too. So the building was sold, different management company. I'm not making excuses, but there's a lot of variables here. And Kelsey can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there's some guidelines or statutes that we need to follow in order, like as Terry Noggle did, because I think Terry Noggle's the lead on this from a code standpoint. Because if they beat certain steps in the process, okay. Yes, you could probably say, hey, can you get this any quicker? Is it going to get done? I don't know. I think Otis Elevator has a contract. I believe that's who got it. Are they planning to install this on the date? Because they had to supply an actual schedule for some of these things. So I just wanted to make it clear, this is a full replacement. This isn't put new parts in. This is a full car replacement, which is critical, and bring it up to today's technology. Because by the way, I believe this elevator is original to the building. And the other thing is when we start getting concerned about who's in that building and what's in that building. Kelsey again can stop me if I say something wrong here. Because I was cautioned about where you go with that and how you deal with that. Because of the different levels of, what's the word I'm looking for here? The different levels of payment methods and programs that are involved with this. Hence why, okay, finally, senators, representatives are involved in this. Great. Why did it take this long for them to be involved? Okay, but there's certain things that we can do and can't do because you might violate someone's civil rights. And I mean simple stuff. And I'm just speaking from experience. And like when you say about elevators, well, guess what? When the fire alarm goes off, those elevators are inoperable. So just stating some obvious things here that go through my head as you're talking, I'm going, okay, we already have a problem. But again, what's the ultimate answer is a nuclear option, which nobody wants to see. But ultimately, I believe that falls back on the management company. So again, like this year has been a problem. It's been a headache for a long, long time. At least we have something to see that we're going towards. And I think one of the things Kelsey brought up, I said earlier, was we need to have somebody, it's like having a fire watch. You need to put somebody there 24/7 in the building from maintenance, that when they have a problem, they're there. Not when they get there, they're on site, period. That's probably one of the best, I'm gonna use Andy's thing, carrot dangling things out there is, hey, look, this is what we expect you to do. And obviously that's maybe an attorney to attorney thing, but that was mentioned already. I just wanted to make sure a couple of facts got out there because I think there's a little bit of misunderstanding, but as far as I'm understanding, it's a full car replacement and the other one's to follow with the same type of replacement plan. That's what I was told.
And just to clarify what I said, I'm not suggesting this is not complicated and not a major improvement that needs to be done. I just know from personal experience working with contracts, you always hear no, and then you say, but I'll pay more. And then they say, okay, it wasn't really a no, it was like, well, it's not what we usually do now,
Yeah,
and we can do it faster.
Kind of like Chief Winchester's example, there's the Cadillac and then there's the Yugo, yeah. I'm afraid they're buying the Yugo here. I don't have any proof of that. I'm just, fearful.
I think if there's any way we can leverage having a person there 24/7, that would probably cost them less than any other solution.
Yeah, I think that's a key solution to help us right now to mitigate
Yes.
the risk of what's going on in that building. But I think what we can do as far as a plan, because right now we're sort of just talking in ideas. I think a good plan might be to put a deadline. I can put a deadline to the attorney on them to tell us what they're going to do in writing with an MOU or some sort of contract with the township. This is what they will do until that elevator gets repaired or replaced. And if they don't meet that deadline, then the township can decide whether it wants to get aggressive and engage in actual litigation and bring them to court. And usually when that happens, a settlement occurs. So, I mean, I think placing deadlines on them and making them know that you're serious and you're going to get aggressive with it could be an option to, get them moving.
Well, to that point, I want to be clear, at least from my perspective, the nuclear option is on the table for me. Because I will sleep worse at night if something catastrophic happens than if we have to put a placard on that building. That is far worse if there's a serious fire that people can't escape than if we have to figure out how to work with Health and Human Services in the state to find homes for these people. So the nuclear option, as we call it, is 100% an option for me personally.
Kelsey, I had a question. Is there any kind of liability that the township is incurring right now without moving on citations, knowing the situation that's in place?
No, I don't think the township has liability for not moving forward. The township has sent notices of violation. I think that getting more aggressive could lessen that liability. I mean, as you know, anyone could sue the township for almost any reason. So yeah, if there was a catastrophic event there, could someone's family member of a resident that was injured or tragically died, sure, they could say you didn't do enough. But I don't think that would carry much weight in a lawsuit.
Because I know just yesterday, we were down there, I think, preparing for evacuation. Because there was a smoke element. In my opinion, that place is half a second away from a catastrophic event with the things that occur down there. That's just my humble opinion.
So could we put a deadline on them to say, you have 60 days to have somebody there 24/7 or we are placarding the building?
Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe not go that far. I'm just gonna rein it back a little bit, but maybe go Kelsey's option first. The one that you just threw out there with the 60 days to put somebody there, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly have a conversation with the attorney and let him know that, you know, this board is taking this very seriously and you have 60 days to figure out what you're doing or you're gonna get placarded. And I'll talk to Terry Noggle too and make sure that he's comfortable with the steps that he's already taken, because like Chief Bean said, there is a process with being able to condemn a building under the IPMC. And so I want to make sure that Terry's comfortable, that all his ducks are in a row, that if this board says, all right, we're ready to move forward with that, he's good to go and has the correct legal backing to be able to take that to court if necessary and defend it.
And then part two to that, like, can we move more? Well, I'm going off of what Gene said, so it sounds like Willie's on top of this. Like, can we move it a little bit more towards getting towards the end game of, I'm trying to choose my words here quickly too, or correctly too, so I'm kind of stammering a little, but I think Chief Winchester's onto something there. I mean, I don't want to sit here saying like we know they have code violations, but we didn't do anything. Like, can we do something?
I think what Kelsey just said is what we should do, and then you should send him the link to the video of this meeting and with when they need to dial in to the minutes so they can hear Andy say, I
I'm
don't
serious.
care.
Yeah, I'll get in touch with the attorney. I will also get in touch with Terry and make sure that he's ramped up and ready to go and that he feels like he can support placarding the building. If that's, you know, what the board directs at some point.
To clarify, I don't want to do that, but I will vote yes if it comes to that.
And Kelsey, you had mentioned in an email a while back that they wanted to meet with us, the attorney. Is that still on the table or no?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I figured I'd call him first and bring back what he said. I don't think meeting with him before me talking to him would have helped, because I don't think he actually knew a whole lot about exactly what was going on. So now that he does, I think it would be a good idea.
Okay, and I have heard from both Senator Schwenk and some of the county commissioners that they'd like to be part of that meeting if we would be willing to allow them to be part. And I'm sure Rep. Guzman would probably feel the same way.
Okay, I'll reach out to him to inform him of the meeting, the discussion we had tonight at this meeting, and to try to set something up.
Thanks so much for not much of an update there, right? Okay, the correspondence for this 1031, wait. What is this? This is just the advertisement for the budget meetings? Is that
Yes.
what this is, Gene?
Yes,
Okay,
because the budget meeting is this meeting is a special meeting. It wasn't on your regular meeting schedule, so it requires advertisement. I did it twice because I updated what we were going to talk about. So do you want me to dive into the first part of the budget meeting?
do we want to, I see the planning commission resignation. Do we just want to hammer that out and then we can just do the
Certainly.
budget and be done?
Certainly. Mr. Potocnik did not serve on the planning commission very long, but he always had productive things to say. I'm not aware as to why he resigned, but I would request that the board accept his resignation with regrets.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Mr. Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Greg Miller.
Yes.
Thank you. Now you again, as I stated at the last meeting, there is no crisis with the planning commission. There still is one more alternate. And we can move now, someone can be moved from the alternates into the regular planning commission slot, and then there are two more alternate positions available.
In terms of moving someone, is that something we need to do tonight or?
No,
Okay,
absolutely not. No.
Okay.
The first thing that I wanted to do under the budget section is alert the board to the various deadlines that we're under with respect to the budget. The first class township code says that a budget needs to be adopted for the succeeding year by December 31st of the preceding year. Townships go by, fiscal year is the calendar year. Unlike, for example, the federal government is October to September, school districts are, July to June, etc. But for townships of the first class, it's calendar year. Second of all, that really isn't the date. It's really a few days earlier than that, because in order for the county to print the real estate tax millage on the tax bills, and we need to notify the county of the various millages by December 26th. If we don't do that, then we would have to print our own tax bills, and I guarantee you it is much more cost effective to have the county do it. In fact, I'm not aware of any municipality in this area that prints their own tax bills. In regard to when to adopt a budget, it has been many years that the board has had a special Christmas time meeting. Most boards want the budget to be adopted at their third Tuesday regular meeting, which is December 16th this year. If that is the date on which we want to adopt a budget, then you have to count back 20 days for the budget advertisement to appear in the newspaper. That's according to the code. I do not know why it is 20 days in particular, but that's what it is. In between there, if anyone wishes to propose a change in Act 511 taxes, that has to be, an ordinance has to be adopted by December 1st. That has not happened in my time here. However, the reason I listed, no, Act 511 taxes, for everyone's information, is EIT, earned income tax, amusement tax, business privilege tax, which Cumru does not have and does not have the option to have. If a municipality has not adopted a business privilege tax by 1994, you can't have one. So that door is closed. Per capita tax, local services tax, which is the so-called $52 tax that's deducted from payroll, occupational assessment tax, occupational privilege tax. All of those so-called nuisance taxes are Act 511 taxes. The reason I bring this deadline up, it usually wouldn't matter, but there is legislation on the table in this current legislative session on the state level to allow for, if a municipality adopts the appropriate ordinance, an increase in the local services tax. Now, that legislation is still in committee. It has not been adopted, but I wanted to alert you to it. If the legislative session does not adopt it, all the legislation dies, but it could be brought up again in the next legislative session. So it's worth knowing that something is on the table on the state level. So the deadline when the budget advertisement must appear in the Reading Eagle is November 27th, which happens to be Thanksgiving. And the email that I need to send, I or Patty needs to send in order to set up that advertisement needs to be sent to the Reading Eagle on the Tuesday, the 25th. So Tuesday, the Monday, the 24th or Tuesday, the 25th are your last days to meet all these various deadlines and have a budget set up. Okay. With all those things in mind, I was going to start with the refuse budget. I chose to start with the refuse budget because the refuse budget has been such a subject of conversation over the past couple of years. The bottom line, if you want to look at bottom lines, is that with the reduction in the refuse rate this year, that trimmed the amount of carryover that is expected for it going into 2026, so that it is below that 30% threshold that the auditor spoke about. The refuse contract, the refuse hauling contract has to be rebid in 2026 to take place 2027, 28, and 29. I guarantee you that there will be an increase in the hauling contract for the next bid cycle. There is a slight increase for 2026 that is baked into the current contract. So on the first page, you will see that under services cost, the first one is hauling contract. That 1.1 million is baked into the current contract that we have with AJ Blazinski. Used to be Eagle, and now they've merged into AJ Blazinski. That will have to be that contract will have to be bid in 2026 in order to take place in 2027. And that's where the board and I have had extensive discussions about potentially districting the township, so to speak, and providing alternatives on the bids for automated collection in the so-called toters. That will be quite an interesting bid specification to write. Another item that you will, another couple of items that you will see on this budget is the costs for non-Teamster healthcare have increased by 19.6%, and that's embedded in the healthcare line item. You'll see that occurring in all the different funds. Another item that you will see is that you'll see a notation. It has a very minimal effect on this fund, but on the first page, towards the lower part of the page, you might see the words under communications, 427320, switches for phone system. We recently discovered that because of technology incompatibility, the 6 switches for our phone system upstairs need to be replaced. In terms of technology years, they are 14 years old, which is basically Jurassic Park age. In terms of technology, they have served us well. They are original to the phone system that we spec'd out back in 14 years ago, but they are incompatible with current technology. And right now we have a patch fix, but we need to replace those switches. The cost of that will be just over $13,000, and it will occur actually in this year. It'll be spread across the funds, but I wanted to let you know about that issue. We are going to increase the calendar of the refuse and recycling calendar is our bestseller, if you will. We issue it every year in January, and we also include in that calendar information that we are required by unfunded mandates to distribute to the public. We are actually going to increase it by another panel in order to fulfill other unfunded mandates. But this time the increase is also an additional increase related to refuse and recycling. So that cost is going to go up a bit. The choice that, or the item that I wish the board to consider is, one, if you have any questions on any of these line items, but two, the biggest issue is, do you wish to leave the refuse fee as it is for 2026? The current refuse fee is $290 a year for a household with 1 adult and $320 a year for a household with 2 or more adults. And the vast majority of the households are 2 or more adults. Do you want to put it back up to where it was previously, which was $300 and $330? Do you wish to eliminate a tiered system altogether and have just one single fee? So I need the board to at least think about what you would like to do in regard to the refuse fee. I guess the low-hanging fruit would be, do you want to retain a tiered system or not?
Can I I just divert for a second, Gene, the 30% number, that's above the 531, I assume?
Where are you? I'm sorry, where are you?
I'm looking at where you would end up, so it's the
Oh.
second page.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Or maybe I should rephrase that. What is the 30% number?
What the auditor was saying that is, if you look at the annual expenses, the 1.7 million. And then take 30% of that, that's ideally what they would like to see as carryover. This 531,000 is less than that 30%, which would be about 570,000. Now, that is not a rule, that is a recommendation. If the board would like to go with this budget as is, you certainly can do that. I just wanted to point that out because we had that recent presentation. And you do not have to make a decision tonight, but the structure of the refuse fee is the critical item with this budget.
Two quick things. In terms of the hierarchy, my personal opinion is that I would prefer to keep it. It seems more fair. I just see my neighbors, and I have some elderly neighbors, have one small bin of trash that goes out, and we have a lot more than them. And I think it's fair for us to pay a little bit more for the service than they do because we use more of it. I did just have a favor to ask for these, just with regard to the 30%. If it wouldn't be too much to ask, could you somehow include like what that would be?
Sure.
Just so that we can see like
Yep.
where we're at with regard to that.
That's why I just did a little bit of math. So if I'm taking 30% of 1731, 270.93, I get like 519.
So I apologize. I don't know where I
Formula-
obviously
formula.
made an error before. Still, so yeah, as I just stated, the board could accept this budget as is, if you wish. I would caution the board that I would anticipate for 2027, there will be a substantial increase in the fee due to a newer contract.
No, Marcatani, you're gonna preside over this, so you have any thoughts on what we're talking? You guys, there's extra seats up here. Do you wanna just come up and then you can use the mic? All right, then I can just yell.
Oh, yeah. we can-
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was just saying, I was getting used to the format here, so where we were talking about the increase in the refuse fee, point me to the line, please.
The fee is stated at the very top. And I have not incorporated an increase. This budget is done without increase. The direction from the board was to construct the budget without any changes in either fees or if it's a millage related budget. So the fee is $290 for a household with one
I see.
adult
Okay,
and $320 for 2 or more adults. And the budget is constructed with that fee. That's the current fee with
Right.
that fee in mind.
okay. And so I agree with Andy's assessment that keeping it tiered seems fair, so I would support that. So the question then is, do we need to increase it? And is that sort of an open question?
That is an open question, as Mr. Greg Miller just pointed out. Using that sort of 30% guideline, the budget meets that. So there's no the only incentive, if you will, for increasing the fee would be to soften the increase that is highly likely to occur in 2027. You do not have to do that. You can leave it as it is, and just whatever happens in 2027 is, you deal with it at the time. So that's the choice.
Hmm.
And the board does not have to make a decision at this moment, but I wanted to point out that you will have to make that choice in 2027. At this time next year, you will be making
So-
that choice.
So what, if we didn't increase at all this year and we kept things flat as they are, what are you projecting the increase would need to be for 2027? Or
No idea.
No
It's
idea.
based, the contract, it's required to bid this contract.
Okay, right,
So it's whatever the bids come in at.
okay. But we know it's probably going to be higher, we're expecting because of the new method that they're using and.
Actually, the new method is to mitigate the increase. I'm expecting it to be higher because of what's being experienced all around us in other municipalities that have recently bid their refuse contracts. They've all experienced substantial increases. Wyomissing's is $550. I think I even saw election literature referencing that. Moton had to increase their fee by $100. They're more than ours. We're one of the lower ones. The only fees that are lower than ours are municipalities that endeavor to create even more of a tiered system than we have. Both Kenhurst and Spring have systems where they tier 1 adult, 2 adults, 3 adults. That also requires an administration that almost like takes a census of their population. So they have administrations that are set up to do that. We are not. I mean, could we? Yes, but that would be something I'd really have to think about how we would administer that in a population like ours that is not already set up for that.
I think Spring actually did away with that.
Oh, did
just
they?
this year.
Oh,
What
thank
you
you.
proposed is what they ended up doing. They just flattened it out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I had not, usually, sometime during the fall, we make calls around to the other municipalities. We hadn't gotten there yet. We've been discussing some other, intermunicipal issues. So thank you for that. It is difficult to administer these. When you get too fine a point on it with these tiered fees. Now, ours, I'll give you an example how we administer ours. Somebody builds a home in the town, a new single family home, they bill, we bill them at the 2-person rate, at the 2 adult rate. And typically they are couples that are building homes. But then if you know, there are separations, divorces, unfortunately people pass, then they contact us and say, you know, my husband passed away, it's just me in the house, and then we can lower the fee and we refund that small difference. We issue a check and refund that small difference. So that's why also in this budget you will see there somewhere on here, refund down at the bottom of the first page, refunds, you will see an actual line item for that, because there are that happens a lot. That people contact us and inform us that it's just one person in the house. We look at per capita records to verify those kind of things. So hopefully I answered that question.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. I don't know how everybody's feeling about that. I mean, you could soften the blow and do some minor increase that sort of makes next year's potential, but we don't really have anything to fall back on to say the cause of that is this new contract. Whereas if we waited, we obviously have something to point to, but seems like the historical trend is going to mean a substantial increase potentially. So it's a tough call.
Yeah,
I'll let others weigh in a little bit on this.
I'm kind of thinking like you are, Mark. You know, if you wait, yes, it may be a bigger increase, but you can say, well, we got a new contract and here's what it is. Otherwise, we're just kind of speculating at this point as to
Right.
what it'll be.
I agree.
I think to Gene's point, it's probably safe to assume it's gonna go up, but what is that? Is it
We don't know.
$20? Is it $100? Is it $200? I mean, who knows? We're just speculating at this point.
Okay, well, I think that provides the guidance. A resolution will appear on your December agenda as part of the package for adopting the budget and the tax ordinance and whatnot. I also want the board, by the way, to think about, can we please use a consent agenda for that package of items? It will make the meeting go a lot faster.
Gene, can I just ask
Yeah.
a question only for my own curiosity, if nothing else? What is like required by the state or regulations of the township with regard to our refuse services? Like, I'm just thinking about like, if this hauler comes back and says it's $1,000 more per capita, and we're like, well, people don't want to pay $1,000 more and they can't pay $1,000
Mhm.
more. What,
Mhm.
and what's the world look like if we say we're just not doing that?
The requirement actually is not municipal trash. And so put a pin in that. The requirement is the recycling. Cumru Township, by its population and density, is a mandated recycling community. And that imposes several different things. One regulation is about burning. So Brecknock Township, for example, Brecknock Burks at least, is not a mandated recycling community, and they can allow burning. The restrictions on burning that we have are because we're a mandated recycling community, not because of the fire chief. He enforces it, but it's about recycling, because the idea is if you have recycling of leaf, the state calls it leaf waste, by the way, even if it's branches, it's called leaf waste. That's the official name. The state's position is, if you're recycling leaf waste, why are you burning? So there are severe restrictions. There are also mandates for the types of recycling, glass, cans of the different kinds, aluminum and bimetal cans. That's like cans that hold like peas. That's bimetal or cans. Certain kinds of plastics, not every single kind of plastic is mandated to be recycled. And in regard to leaf waste, we are required to do two things. One is have a minimum once a month drop-off facility, which we do down at Poplar Neck. And two, twice a year offer curbside yard waste or leaf waste pickup. We internally, we usually use the term yard waste because when you use the term leaf waste, people are thinking of like right now. Believe it or not, the sucking up of the leaves with the vacuums is not one of the requirements, but there are grants available for the leaf machines. We have gotten several of them via grants. Really the collecting of the leaves the way we do is beneficial for like snow plowing and other things. So that's the requirement, is the recycling. The reason municipalities do municipal trash collection in addition to that is because not doing trash collection becomes a codes issue. People will hoard trash on their properties looking for a way to get rid of it. They'll dump. We already have dumping in the West Reading area. We have dumping in the South 9th Street area. And the other thing is people might say, well, then I'll just get my own hauler. The problem with that, it becomes, do you wish to have a number of small entities with trash trucks running around the township at various times? It's a lot more truck traffic on the road because of these various companies that have their own hauling. So again, the recycling part is mandated, the trash part is not mandated, but it's a good idea. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, that was good. I just want to sort of get the whole universe of possibility in
Mhm.
my mind.
Mhm.
And along those lines, just to kind of wrap this, I assume there'll be a 2026 event to create the separate refuse district then that we talked
Yes,
about?
that,
Okay.
that will be incorporated into the 2026 bid specs. We'll probably have to, the board has already authorized it to be a separate district. We'll have to create for the bid specs kind of a table of, two different areas and different alternates on the bid to see how they come out. We're gonna have to allow for an extra period of time. Usually these type of bids, it's like a 5 or 6 week process. And one pre-bid meeting. We may have a longer process for entities to wrap their mind around the shape of the township, the upside down dead pig, and the scope of the township. To give you an example, the administrative staff keeps track of the exact tonnages that are collected every day. We get reports from the landfill. There are 2 different contracts. There's the hauling contract and then the dumping or tipping contract. That one is in place until 2030 with Republic Services, but they're known costs per ton. And it goes up slightly every year. With COVID, everyone may remember we were all getting takeout. There's lots of trash with COVID because of all the takeout. Believe it or not, it really made a difference. Since that time, the tonnage, not the cost, the tonnage has been floating downwards a little bit. It looks like now we've hit a floor on the tonnage. The tonnage for the first 9 months of 2024 is almost exactly to the ton, the same as the tonnage for the first 9 months of 2025. It was kind of stunning. And not only the same overall, but for the 5 trash districts. We have 5 trash districts for each of the 5 districts. So people have really settled into their post-COVID pattern. There is a bump up in December for Christmas. I'm not really sure what that's going to look like this Christmas because of all the upheaval that's going on right now in the economy. So we can, if we don't have another disruptive event like COVID, and I know that's a pretty hefty statement, I have a pretty good handle on the tonnage that to be expected from the populace. Thank you for the discussion.
Can I also just
Yes.
follow up with the opposite end of the universe that I'm curious about? On one hand, we keep sort of a similar trajectory of services that we offer today. On the other hand, I'm just imagining what if we didn't do that? And then on the far other end of the spectrum is what would it look like if the township collected trash?
We need
Not
a
suggesting we do that. I'm just trying to imagine in my head, what are all the possibilities? What is the cost?
You need a ton more trucks. We do not have the Public Works Department has several vehicles that they pay for. You have to pay the state for a sticker. It's essentially permission to dump, but that's for places like West Reading and South 9th Street when we have to go pick up the couches that people dump. So that the thing you should not do when you become aware of a dumping site, Mountain View, there's a section of Mountain View Road that's problematic. Don't leave it there. Remove it, because once somebody gets an idea that they can do that, it's like flies. Anyway, but for regular municipal waste of the type that you're talking about, we need actual bona fide trash trucks, which we do not have. You also need the staff to man those trash trucks. And my understanding is that the workers' comp for trash haulers is a higher rate than workers' comp for other types of workers. That's why they're going to this automated style collection. And I have not costed out the price of a trash truck. I'm assuming we're talking a $500,000 truck.
You're probably talking $500,000 trucks, 2 to 3 trucks, maybe. I'm guessing at a lot of this. Probably 3 guys, 3 people per truck to operate the truck. Cause you have to consider, breakdowns and sick time and things like that. Then there's the time to get to the landfill. You're also gonna need a special building to house those trucks because of all that liquor, as they call it, that comes off those trucks as you squeeze the juice out. You can't just park those anywhere. That's a special thing. I had some experience with this at a previous job. And if they parked them on the street too long, they got in a lot of trouble, and that got
Yes.
expensive also. And they eventually got out of that business. And I have some other comments about that we could share some other time, but it's gonna be extremely expensive, especially startup.
And 500,000 is actually low.
Understood.
The company that sells us our Vector truck, that salesman primarily focuses on trash trucks. And we talk once in a while, but I'm basing the $500,000 on, the Vector was 540 or something like that. But the cleaning of those trucks and the maintenance of those trucks is a big deal.
So thank you. The direction I get from the board is retain the same fee schedule, and we'll see what 2027 brings us. The next budget that I'd like to talk about is one that we actually don't talk about very much, but there's a reason for me doing that. We have a relatively small fund called the Stormwater Fund. This fund was started because there is a mandate by the state. There is a program called MS4, Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. Municipal and then 4 S's, so MS4. Under the MS4 program, the township is required to inspect when stormwater systems are installed for any building project. So something you may have heard about, especially if somebody complained about it, was that even for building a single family home on a previously approved lot, they are still required to build a small stormwater system to go along with that project. And it's especially important in the more rural areas where people are relying on well water. It's to recharge the water back into the environment. But there are other purposes, of course, is to prevent erosion, etc. We have an ordinance that, so part of that program is the municipality is required to periodically, every 3 years, inspect that facility for 10 years after its installation. The township has set up a fee schedule that requires someone to submit 2 $1,000 fees to the township when they are required to build a stormwater system. One $1,000 fee is to cover the review of their stormwater plan and the initial inspection. The other $1,000 fee is to cover the periodic inspections for the next 10 years. This program has been in place since 2003. That's essentially when the MS4 program really started getting going in the state. After that 10 years, if there is any money left from that inspection fee, it remains in the fund. It's a fee, not an escrow. Okay, so with that framework in mind, what you'll see on this budget is the expectation that we will accumulate about $10,000 worth of stormwater fees during the next year. It's very hard to predict. This year, we, actually have collected some, stormwater fees for various projects. For instance, developer subdivides 3 lots. And then over the next few years, people buy those lots and put a single family home on the lot. They are also required to submit these fees along with their building permit fees, so that as the home is constructed, the stormwater facility is also constructed and inspected. So you will see fees coming into the fund under revenue, and you will see expenditures going out. Now, there is a legal line item because there is an agreement that goes along with the stormwater facility that the homeowner or property owner has to agree to maintain that stormwater facility. Sometimes there are questions and issues, and apparently we had one this year, and that's where that very small amount of money comes from. There are engineering fees associated with this fund because the engineer has to inspect the installation of the stormwater facilities. Now, you will also see miscellaneous expenditures. As I stated earlier, this fund can sometimes accumulate a little bit of money. We are allowed under the ordinance to spend that money on other stormwater projects if it is not associated with inspecting a particular facilities. And I hesitate to call it free money, but unallocated money. The board is unaware because it hasn't appeared on one of your agendas yet. It will appear on your regular meeting November agenda that we just did a major storm sewer repair over on Old Lancaster Pike near Spring Township. I can let Bob describe it more in detail. And
It's similar to the process they used. It's exactly the process they used in Flying Hills this summer. They take a resin impregnated sock, they turn it inside out, they force it inside the existing pipe with air pressure, lots of noise and fun stuff. And then they inflate it with steam and they cook it for an hour and a half, and it becomes stronger than the original pipe that was there. So we replaced, I think it was 250 feet for around $50,000 in a day. That probably would have taken at least a month, bidding, engineering, advertising, and maybe I'm guessing 4 times as much. So, but that pipe will last as long as any of us will.
And the reason we did this repair is otherwise you're gonna lose a section of road.
Yeah, the pipe that was there, the bottom had rusted out, and what happens is the corrugated metal pipe rusted on the bottom, and then the material slowly comes around the pipe and everything settles, and we end up with subsidence around and over the pipe. We fixed this back in late June, early July, but it was just a patch, and then we realized what condition the pipe was in, so.
And there was also a handicap ramp involved with this as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, when they put this in, they ran the pipe directly underneath 2 handicap ramps that we would have had to replace. And handicap ramps are ridiculously expensive.
Minimum around $15,000 per ramp. So, and this was done under CoStar's the state contract. Now, what does it have to do with this? That's $10,000 of miscellaneous expenditures under 2025 is the portion of unallocated stormwater fees that will go towards this $50,000 expense. Otherwise, the rest of it has to come out of the general fund. So Patty and I took a look at the stormwater fund to see what the stormwater fund could contribute to take a little bit of pressure off of the general fund. That is, you don't have to do anything with this fund. I am not requesting any motions. The fee schedule is incorporated into the fee schedule having to do with building permits. We issue a large fee schedule every year. And if there are engineering costs associated with a stormwater review that exceed the $1,000, the property owner is billed for that balance. So I just wanted to point out that we have this fund and also that we just had a major storm sewer repair that will appear on a future agenda in November. The next fund that we have is the SMP fund. SMP stands for Sewage Management Program. This, when people say the word sewer, they typically think of public sewer. Technically, it's all sewer, whether you have public sewer that goes in a pipe to a treatment plant, or whether you have sewer that's an on-lot septic system. SMP refers to septic systems. We have about 1,050 septic systems in the township, which is actually a large number for a township of our size. We have many more septic systems than, say, Muhlenberg Township, or and I'm not sure about Spring though, because Spring is has a larger area. But we have quite a few septic systems in the township. This fund was set up, the DEP mandated that we set up a sewage management program to regularly inspect and pump the tanks of septic system properties. Because we have so many of these, the township is divided into 3 districts. Each district has a 3-year window in which the property owner, sometime during that 3-year window, needs to have their tank pumped and inspected. We have a sewage enforcement officer, which is an individual that carries certification from the state, who meets with the pumpers at the property owners at the property. And as the tank is pumped out, the inspector is able to look at the tank. Is it in good condition? Do they have the proper baffles, etc.? The sewage enforcement officer also handles violations with respect to septic systems. In other words, if somebody has a malfunctioning system and they've got raw sewage on the ground, the inspector handles enforcement and, of course, permitting for new septic systems or repairs to septic systems. So that's the setup for this fund. The revenue comes from an annual fee. At this moment, the fee has been set at $55 per year. Now, this fund was started in 2017 at a cost of $75 per year. At that time, we were actively engaged with the DEP in revising our Act 537 plan. And there was a concern about having enough funds to pay for all of the things that are required to do with an Act 537 plan, which is a very, very expensive document to produce. The DEP actually requested that the township withdraw the Act 537 after a couple of years of work, and the state has not mandated that we pursue that again. But we had accumulated money in this fund to pay for that. Since that went unused, the board reduced the fee to $65 a year, and then for 2024 and 2025, the fee was reduced down to $55 per year, because as you can see at the very bottom, there is an excess of money in the fund. The fund has done exactly what we wanted it to do. We are gradually using up some of the excess unallocated money. And you'll see that at the bottom, where we've lowered the fee enough that the expenses in the fund are gradually chewing up some of that excess. At some point, and I don't know when this will be, the DEP will again resurrect the need to do a full-blown Act 537 plan. So I would encourage the board not to drain this fund. It looks like a lot of money, but when we have to engage in doing another Act 537 plan, that's a very expensive process. I think, and the program is set up in 3-year increments. 2026 would be the third year of this 3-year cycle. So it was $55 in 2024, $55 in 2025. I'm proposing to maintain the $55 in 2026. And then when you get to 2027, then the board can decide what it would like to do. Certainly, if the board wanted to completely eliminate the fee, you probably could. I wouldn't recommend it. Because then you have the issue of expectations. When you would need to resurrect the fee, then that becomes its own problem, back to Mr. Ferrero's comment about expectations. But that's the status with this fund. This is a very unusual fund. No, part of Patty's salary comes out of this fund. She is our primary contact with the sewage enforcement officer. And when somebody has their property inspected, he generates a letter, and Patty makes sure that a copy of that is properly filed with the township and also sent to the property owner so that they have feedback. Sometimes when they're selling a property, they call us and ask for a copy of their last inspection. We send that to them because that's very useful for sale of the home. If anyone has any questions about this fund, please let me know. Yes. Yes. That's a third. That's 1/3. You may recall I mentioned that the non-Teamster health insurance is increasing to the tune of 19.6%. And we already had a portion of wages coming out of here. It didn't make sense to not have health insurance coming out of there. So I noticed that, and that is approximately 35% of what the current rate is with Benecon.
So it's just kind of a true up. I was gonna ask the same kind of question. So you're basically just saying, hey, we're taking wages out of here. Well, there's more than wages. There's also benefits.
Yes,
That should have probably always been captured.
yes.
And
and it
now we're
wasn't,
truing it
yeah.
up. Okay, all right. That's what I was gonna ask too.
Want to just confirm my understanding of what you said in the beginning is that this is not like municipal sewage. This is like on-lot septic.
Yep. Yep. So and I'm very careful with people to distinguish, because when people, well, I'm on sewer. What kind? What do you mean, what kind? Because there's a misconception that when you have on-lot sewer and even on-lot water with a well, that somehow it's free or no cost or low cost. And think of it this way: a septic system has a timer on it. It's going to fail at some point in the future. The point of this program and why the DEP is gradually mandating this for all municipalities is to lengthen the life of a septic system so that it is less of a cost burden in the long run.
I guess where my mind goes is the $55 a year, is that only for people with on-lot septic?
Yes. Yes.
Homeowners who have, or residents who don't have on-lot septic don't pay the $55 a year.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And you will see, we have this fee billed in combination with the refuse bills. So we have most of the refuse bills go out. It's about 5,000 bills go out just with the refuse fee. And then there's a subsection of bills that go out around 1,000 that go out with refuse and SMP on the bill. The actual fee, just to be clear, the actual fee is 55 times 3 to pay for the inspector's time. But the board long ago decided that instead of every 3 years, people getting a bill for $150, $160, do it annually. Again, we're back to that expectations issue. And it is a relatively low fee, as things go.
That sort of leads me to where my mind was going next is like, just theoretically, could we switch to more of like a on-demand fee structure where like when the inspector comes out, we just bill the resident or?
That would be very difficult to administer, very difficult to administer. And the other issue that in comparing how some other municipalities do it, some municipalities, I'm very well aware, they use the pumpers as the inspectors. I think Robeson does that to minimize the cost to residents, because you're paying the guy to do two things at once. Because with our type of program, they're paying this fee, but they're still paying the pumper to do the pumping. The drawback to having the pumpers being the inspectors is that there's conflict of interest. There are some issues with pumpers not necessarily reporting things that are of interest. I'm not saying they're not reporting violations. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to besmirch them, but things like, well, your baffles need repair. You really need a new lid. The more minor things, but also that whole idea of conflict of interest. So Cumru made the choice long ago to have a separate sewage enforcement officer do the inspection, and then also generate the letter that people can have something to show for it. If the board wishes to change the program to do things differently, you certainly can.
I do deal with him basically on an almost daily basis. What I, as an observer and as a person who has an on-lot septic system, I like that it's a standard. Like when you see his letters, he's looking at the exact same thing for every person, where if you have all different pumpers, they might not be holding it to the exact same standard. And when he's making his recommendations, I have a whole list of, better access, replace the lid, this, that, the other, but he looks at the exact same thing for everybody. It's a standard. So.
Maybe this is a silly question, but the folks that are paying this fee, they're not also paying like our normal sewer bill as
No,
well, right?
no.
Okay,
It's-
just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah, I get a sanitary sewer bill every quarter. My friend who lives back in the woods gets a once a year SMP sewer bill. It's like a mini sewer bill. So
Final question, just with regard to the Act 537
Mhm.
events that can come up and be expensive. How much of a buffer, like I certainly wouldn't want to just like say like, let's just blow the money and like, or like kill the fund, whatever, but I wonder just now, like how much does that cost? Like what are we talking about?
Oh, and that's a really great question that is very hard to answer. Act 537 plans require various studies that have to be done. It's an enormous package of documentation. Every municipality's Act 537 is a section of state law that has to do with sewage. Every municipality is required to have an Act 537 plan, no matter. Now, they may not have updated it in a long time, but they have to have a plan. How are you getting rid of sewage? Whether it's on-lot sewage or sanitary sewer, which is what we usually refer to as public sewer. There are various studies that are required to put together an Act 537 plan. For example, in the areas of the township that have on-lot systems, there is a percentage of those properties that have on-lot systems that surveyors are not surveyors as in with a transit, but a SURVEY survey, to take a survey out to their house, talk with the property owner, and get well samples. the last time we did this, we were required to do 15% of the on-lot sewer systems in the township. So 15% of 1,000, approximately. The DEP decided that that wasn't enough. They wanted over 50%. So that's a lot of time and legwork that you're paying for to have those inspectors literally going out and doing this stuff. The other thing that's required nowadays is mapping, and if the DEP, which can be expensive, coordinate cowboys cost a lot of money. And if the DEP wants special studies done. At the last time we were doing an draft of an Act 537 plan, the reviewer with the DEP at that time was determined that they wanted sanitary sewer run all the way down 625 from Nolde to Nowers, which would have been a multi-million-dollar project. And cost was no object, and would also have opened up a vast area of the township to more dense development along the Angelica Creek, because the Angelica Creek crosses 625 4 times. We were required to do an engineering study of this proposal, if you want to call it that, by the DEP. The DEP did not care for the result of the study, and it had to be done again. And every time you're having these consultants, kind of back to the consultant agreement that we were talking about earlier in the meeting, you're racking up quite a bit of money to do these studies. We know that when the DEP comes back and wants us to do the Act 537 plan again, they want us to study the Hayne Road area. Any area of the township that they believe is fragile, if you will, in terms of the quality of the septic systems, they can require a study, a specific study be done on that area. An example of that would be in the 1997 Act 537 plan, we had to study the Coles Mill area, and then we ended up extending sanitary sewer up to Coles Mill as it exists now. So it can rack up costs in the hundreds of thousands. How much? I really can't tell you. We're also talking about costs that are attenuated over a period of time, because as you can imagine, door knocking surveys and engineering studies, you're not writing a check for $200,000 in one shot. We're talking costs that are it can take a couple of years to complete an Act 537 plan. And I'm sorry to be so vague, but it's a high cost but long attenuated process. What you should bring this fund down to, I'm not really sure. But I think we're definitely in safe territory with this. One of the other variables involved with this fund is when we have a violation occurring, South 9th Street, when we have an active violation occurring and we need to enforce using the sewage enforcement officer, because he's kind of like the codes enforcement officer for online systems. That's what an SEO is. His costs for enforcement come out of this. So there also has to be some kind of a buffer for situations like that. Fortunately, most situations like that, the property owner does cooperate. They are cooperating slowly, but they're cooperating. But that's another thing is, and enforcement doesn't have a fee. Enforcement just costs money. And you got to do it. That also comes out of this fee and out of this fund. That's a variable that is hard to predict. So that was a very long-winded answer. I'm sorry.
Where my mind is going is like, I think we talked about this to some extent last year, the balancing act of like not being the piggy bank for
Right.
the
Right.
residents. And is there a way where we can maybe be just a little bit less of a piggy bank while still being diligent about
Mhm.
not knowing that there's probably expenses coming?
Right. And I was actually very glad to see how this worked out. So over the past couple of years, we have chipped away at this piggy bank, because we lowered the fee. If you wish to lower the fee again, you certainly can. It's certainly not going to bankrupt this fund. You have to give me an idea of what you're thinking. Again, I would recommend not eliminating the fee, because then we're back to the expectations game for future years.
I like the idea of lowering it a little bit if it's something that we don't think is gonna be
Here-
seriously consequential.
And I know where you're heading with it. I
If I
think,
could say something else, as the person who does the invoicing, for this fee, an average, inspection is, more than $165.
What is?
Right now, it's really running like maybe like 210. And we average approximately like 200 a year. So, you know, since this was implemented, different fees have gone up, gas has gone up, you're paying for his time and, all the other good stuff. So, and he has not said that he's raising his rates, but, that's always a possibility too. But when, sometimes it's a little cheaper if he can do like 2 or 3 on the same road, like that cuts his time and energy, because he's out, he's coming from like the Ole area, so till he comes back and forth. But if he comes just for one property, I'd say maybe like 210-ish is an average.
Get about 200 a year.
Yeah, so the line item that you would be looking at is the very last one, the 40,000, and that's for, yes, that's a good number. But anyway, I'm sorry, Greg, you were about to
I
speak.
was just gonna say, there's maybe approximately 1,000 people that have the on lot.
Yeah, 1,030, between 1,030 and 1,050. It depends on whether you're talking systems or properties around. Cut the difference, 1,040.
So, I mean, to Andy's question, like, you could play with it a little bit, but you're at a burn rate. I mean, even at our current burn rate, you're looking at 5 years till we hit our 30%. And then you have that, lingering issue that Gene just described. When does it show up? How much?
Yeah.
I know, it's a crystal ball question. like,
Yes, yeah.
um,
You could certainly, if you wanted to lower it a little bit, the fund certainly has the leeway to do that.
I guess before we would do anything, or I would support doing anything, like if we had $0 in this fund and this fund didn't exist, and then the Act 537 stuff came up tomorrow, how do we fund that? Is it just we say to all of the on-lot septic property owners, like, you guys have to pay a big chunk of change for the costs of this next year?
A big chunk of it would be coming out of the sanitary sewer fund, the 803 fund, and a portion of it, the legal stuff, and there are various other costs associated with it, would come out of the general.
And then you're gonna catch up everything. So that's kind of where I was heading with it. I mean, you could potentially lower it, but you're inevitably going to need to increase it with the burn rate that she has in here. So,
All right, thank you for allowing me to give you all that background. I know that sometimes that gets a bit tedious. Hopefully I don't have to give you too much background about the purpose of the ambulance fund. Please keep in mind that the ambulance fund is funded by a real estate tax millage. The current millage is in the upper left-hand corner, 0.34 mils. Last year we had more of an accumulation of money in this fund. The 2025 rate was higher than the 2024 rate. This is a 3-year agreement we have with Tower Direct. The 2026 rate is the same as 2025, and you can see that on the right-hand side, it's the $308,880. That's $45 per household for the number of households, which is about 6,200. And I do believe I put on your tablets the my calculation for that. The issue with this fund is, yes, you will have enough, you will have some balance at the end of this year. However, you can pay January. It's a little bit over $25,000 a month, but February and March, before the real estate taxes come in, you would need to borrow from probably the general fund to sustain those payments until real estate taxes start coming in April. Because even if people pay early, you still won't see any revenue until April. And then the issue becomes you will be underwater at the end of 2026 going into 2027. So that leads me to information about what's happening with our tax assessment. The tax assessment has actually decreased during this calendar year. Taxable, a 1 mil of taxable property in January was worth $888,815. The last assessment that we received October 24th, the taxable assessment, a mil is worth $885,505. That doesn't sound like much. And technically it's not a lot of money. The problem is it's going the wrong direction. About $1 million of that, $3 million in assessed value reduction is $3.3 million reduction. About $1 million of that were properties that went from taxable to tax exempt. And 1.2 million of that was due to the reassessment of Green Hills Corporate Center, which is the place where Penske is headquartered. They received an assessment reduction of $1.2 million. And then there were other miscellaneous reductions in the commercial line item as well. So
I would assume our commercial percentage went down too with those numbers that
Yeah.
you just read off.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, between the slight reduction in assessed value and of course, expenses going up and all of that, that's what has put pressure on this fund. If you increase the millage to 0.35, you'll still be underwater, but only to the tune of about $4,000. Or if you increase it to 0.36, you start accumulating enough to be in the black, but not enough for the first quarter. So it really, what I need the board, and I can also send this to all of you electronically so that you can play with the numbers. But the bottom line is the 0.34 mils is enough to get to the beginning of 2026, but not the end. And what I can do is at your next meeting, I can forward to you alternate versions. But I need you to think about how you want to approach this fund. I don't need a decision tonight. And the other thing you need to know is that in 2026, the board needs to negotiate a new agreement with Tower.
Just eyeballing this, Gene, what do you probably need to get to what, 0.4 to get the fund to a healthy place where you're at that 30%?
0.4 or 0.39, yeah, upwards of that, yeah. one of the things that I would like the board to consider, again, I do not need an answer at this time, is when the board negotiates with Tower Direct, you may or may not want to keep the same basis. Right now, when Cumru Township was the first municipality in this area in 2010 to start an EMS or ambulance tax. And at that time, that's when this per household rate was started, because that was the basis of the negotiation at that time, and the board conducted that negotiation. This contract is still based on a per household rate of $45 per household. I think Mr. Donnell has championed the idea of what's the proper way of costing this out, and I believe Greg, you've also echoed concurrence with that. Is $45 per household valid? Now, as a resident, it's low cost insurance as far as I'm concerned. $45 a household gets me a ride in an ambulance without any cost and above my insurance. I think that's great. But is that the right way to do this? I do not know. And that's something that I really need the board to think about. What do you want the basis of cost to be for negotiating the next contract? But that aside, the fund is under the current agreement, is under some pressure.
Yeah, and the challenge, if you will, with this fund is that there's no levers to pull. Like you're just increasing taxes. That's the only thing you can do. There's no expenses to cut here. They're all fixed, basically.
Yes. The county dispatching, the reason for the way that note looks is I realize that everybody probably saw in the news that the federal government set the Social Security CPI at 2.8% for next year. The current CPI or the latest information was 3%. The county uses the December one, and again, another crystal ball moment. I don't know what that's going to be. I use 3%, but it could end up being more than that.
I think it will end up being more than that.
Okay, I can certainly manipulate that number, but we don't get that bill until February. It's not due until the second quarter, because obviously the county is well aware that municipalities aren't getting their tax revenue in until really the second quarter. But that number is definitely not going down, the 38,697.
Yeah, I feel pretty confident in saying it's going to go up, and above 3%. So then it becomes a question of how healthy do you want it to be? I don't know.
Yeah. So
There's not really an option there. You can't leave it with brackets at the bottom. We have to pay the bills. To Gene's point earlier, there's going to be a problem in January if you don't.
what I can do is I can, set up on the side a little table of, if you do this to the millage, here's what happens. I can send you something to consider what you would want to do. You don't have to make a decision at this time. It's just that something has to be done.
Yeah, and can you sensitize the CPI number up a little too?
Okay, what would you like that to be?
Let's go with 3.3 maybe.
Okay. So it'll be around 40,000. And the radio dispatching also is something you will see in the police budget and in the fire budget when we get to those. So the next fund and the last one for this evening, everybody's been incredibly tolerant, and I thank you for me giving you all this background. The debt service fund is the fund and it's based on millage, 0.85 mils, which is in the upper left-hand corner. And that pays the debt service on the bonds that we referred to earlier in the meeting. There is a debt service schedule that's also on your tablets. That is a set amount of interest every year, a set amount of principal every year that's incorporated into this budget. And the the board has the millage set exactly as it needs to be for that amount. There is very little overage. So what happens is we end up borrowing a little bit of money every year from the general fund. And then when the debt service fund accumulates enough tax revenue, then it's paid back. And you can see that in the first part on the revenue section, you can see that this fund owes $10,000 to the general fund already, and that's to keep the account open. If you zero out the account, they're going to close the account. So we had to put some money in the account to keep it open. We paid our debt service for the year. Don't worry, we paid the bills. So that's what that note is referring to. And you can see that the same process is going to occur in 2026. There's going to be a very small amount of money, and we'll probably have to borrow a little from the general fund to keep the account open.
Yeah, and to Gene's point, you don't need to have the 30% increase or excess rather in this one. There's no
Oh,
reason
yes,
for
I'm
it.
sorry, I didn't even talk about that. Yes. This is set just, there are no wages coming out of here. None of those other type of variable costs. This is just to pay the debt. So thank you very much for tolerating all of my talking. One of the reasons I do that is, of course, for the benefit of the commissioners elect, so that they have some kind of background of where this stuff comes from. Certainly, if you have any questions, feel free to email me or call or contact Patty. But yeah, it's a lot. There are also, if I can do a PSA, there are resources for newly elected officials, and I can email those to you. Do we have, I think we have both here. You're right. There are a couple of different resources. The one, the CELG, Center for Excellence in Local Government, that's run through Albright. They are busy attempting to put together that schedule. They are going to have something. I usually assist with one of those sessions. I've offered my services for all of the sessions if they want me there. They usually have at least one lawyer or solicitor and one or two other individuals. They usually have a session, 2 sessions in January, a session in February, if the weather holds, and then a session beginning in March. The other thing is PSATS, Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors, which are the townships of a second class. Don't call them second class townships. They are also running classes that and one of them is going to be in Berks, and I can send you that. Now, some of the language, they start talking about township supervisors instead of commissioners, but a lot of the principles are the same. So I can send you that as well. And Pennsylvania Municipal League runs some stuff too. So I'll send you various information.